How are you doing? Make sure this is on. Yeah, I think it's on. I think you guys can hear me then. Hopefully somebody will tell me if they cannot hear me. But we live. What's good? 3 days in a row. How Billy sees it. Welcome back. And for this episode, we're going to continue the same conversation. This whole series is about being yourself and what that means, the implications of it, the implications of knowing yourself, being yourself, loving yourself. Um, And the first two episodes went really well. I'm really proud of what we've tackled so far. On this third one, we're going to continue. And I am, as always, going to try to do this in 15 minutes. I don't think I've successfully done that yet, but here's another opportunity. All right. So as I was thinking about the episodes, and I was seeing one of the objections that someone might have. And I was thinking one of the first things people might say is, you say, be yourself, be more yourself, know yourself, love yourself. At every stage, we might think that we know ourselves. We might think that like, yo, what do you mean? Everything I do is me. Everything I do is a reflection of who I am, my personality, my interests, my values, my choices. And I just want to say, really? Are you sure about that? I want to bring attention to phenomena that is external to you that actually does have incredible sway and governance over the choices you make and the person you claim to be and the person you think that you are. I want to bring attention to that. And if you look at the first two episodes, I don't think it can be challenged too much. I think we've done that. I think we've pointed to this reality that the person we think we are, particularly in the younger ages of our lives, are an amalgamation and a reflection of a whole bunch of like social factors and personal definitions and fears, and cultural phenomena that have a major influence on who we think we are. And if anyone knows the psychologist Carl Jung, the quote he has where he says, until you make the unconscious conscious, you will be living something like this. Until you make the unconscious conscious, you'll be living in patterns and you'll call it fate. You'll be doing things your whole life and you'll call it fate, and you won't realize that you were what was available to you was a whole myriad of other potential things, but that you never accessed it because you told yourself something like, oh, this is me, this is who I am, this is what is. You've accepted something that what is. So this whole series, the last two episodes and this one, and potentially the next one, is about the idea that actually the way we define ourselves is limited, and what we have actually in front of us is a bounty, is this like massive, infinite potential that is always available to us, limited by things like our identity. And I want to challenge us to notice this thing and to sort of access a different kind of identity. You see it all the time. I mean, now with Donald Trump violating absolutely everything, gas prices going crazy, more wars, all the things that he said he wouldn't do, he's doing. Go on X, go on Twitter and see how many MAGA people who identified very much with MAGA, not just voted, but they wore the hat and they got excited and they took the pictures and they were all gung ho and they, advocated for this and that. And now they're like, I don't know about MAGA. I voted wrong. I made a mistake. It's not just MAGA. What about the Zionists? How many Zionists who really believed a story about that country, Israel, and are now watching the Israeli leadership commit to more and more wars, all of these tactics and violence and rogue, warmongering in that region, and they're saying that, oh, there's something more than what I thought. They have to accept a broader story about what the whole Zionist project means, and it's causing them to shift their understanding. They're making different decisions. They aren't making the same arguments that they used to make. They can't, because the identity has to align with the reality. Those are two groups that I disagree with very much, but I can even pick a group that I agree with, like an American black male, who I am, right? The challenge of being myself more challenged me to think differently about the conversations I had with other American black males, my friends, the way we talk about women, the way we talk about white people, the way we talk about ourselves, the assumptions we make about ourselves, about our potential, have had to be challenged through my evolution of my identity. And it's put different challenges with my friends, certain conversations I can't uphold anymore. I can't engage with the conversations in the same way. I'm put in a position to have to either challenge those conversations or to step back and pull away. So the challenge for all of us, and this is what like life does, and challenges in life, roadblocks, they create the contrast and the opportunity for us to see and engage with a greater truth, and it challenges our identities. So be yourself is it points to the greatest potential that we have, right? Because yourself, your intuition was given to you by something that escapes our understanding, by God. And that is the most powerful and most potent and most freeing, most genuine version of you once you accept it. Okay? What's funny is, like I said, like, so these all those groups I just mentioned, we don't realize there's no way to account for this, but we every day, the things that we consider mundane, right? We consider them nothing mundane, like these conversations I'm having with different friends, the Zionists, when they meet up and they, these are mundane conversations that you accept as normal, but in truth, these are powerful, energetic choices to agree on the outgroup and agree on the enemy, and to presuppose an innocence on your part, right? MAGA presupposes that they are good and smart, and Trump is a positive thing, until the world challenges them enough and they accept a deeper truth and they say they have to go a different path. So you have to change your pattern. The mundane, the normal, however easy and familiar it is for you, it is not your deepest truth, and it's not your best path. It's not the path for your personal greatest good, nor for the collective greatest good. So this is about being myself has forced me to test and challenge relationships, even in my family. I talked about this in the other episode. My family, I grew up, I'm the oldest son. I have two younger brothers who are 10 and 11 years younger than me, or 8 and 9 years younger than me. I think that's right. And my whole life, I've been sort of the fixer. I've been the father, stepfather, brother. You know what I'm saying? I try my best to be a playful brother with my brothers, but my mom called on me to teach them and to discipline them and to be an example for them. And I took that on a lot. And the way that manifested as a child was I was you'd say the word parentified very much, but even as an adult, you know what I'm saying? Up to around 5-6 years ago, I'd be on the phone in Washington, D.C., where I lived, and I get calls from my mom, and my mom and my brothers lived together, and I'd get calls where I'd be in D.C., I'd be refereeing beefs between them in New York. I'd be watching videos of them arguing over things that, a chore that was left undone or some sort of challenge in the home. And I would be the referee several states away. And I took that on without thinking of it. That's what I said about the whole thing about the patterns and the unconscious becoming the conscious. Unconsciously, I accepted that as this is what it is. This is what my life has always been, even as an adult. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, okay, now. And it really took, to say my wife Sheba to be present and to see some of these things, and to, in her way, lightly, brilliantly, to suggest that, like, that didn't make sense. Why is that happening? And I've had to consider that I could move entirely differently and I don't have to play that role. Also because that role wasn't fun for me. I despised it. I used to get really anxious around those phone calls when the calls would happen. I'd be on a date with Sheba or with anyone. I'd be doing work or something, and a call would come, and it would be with the family, and I knew I had to like resolve some sort of issue, and I would be all tense, and it wasn't working for me. Being more myself challenged me to tell my mom eventually that I can't operate this way, to tell my brothers, I can't operate this way. Y'all need to figure this out. Y'all need to be better. And as adults, y'all need to figure this out without me. Wow, did that change a lot for me? It changes everything. So even the closest relationships, like the family. But I'll go further, man. I'm gonna bring up 3 friendships that I've had to lose. Okay, and I only have like 5 minutes left, but I'm gonna try to get this done. 3 friendships that I've had to lose in my life, in my adulthood. I worked at a company called CNN, a so-called news company. Um, and there are people who work there. There's one person, I'm gonna change his name. We'll call him Bo. Um, Bo worked at CNN for 15 years or more. I'd only worked for 5 years. He's someone who really identified with the company. You know what I'm saying? Like really was proud of the company and all that stuff. When I left, and all of these things were, I left in 2020. All of these things were happening with COVID, and then with Israel and the genocide. And I reached out to Bo. I reached out to him after I'd left, sent a text and asked him about the coverage on CNN. Asked him, like, what are you doing to make it better? Because they're lying. They are intentionally avoiding words that provide accuracy and clarity and are important, like genocide. It had been reported that they were taking direction from Tel Aviv. It's not Bo's fault that this was happening entirely. He didn't make those decisions, yet he was a part of this company. And so I started to ask him these questions, and he got so defensive. You know, I knew that there was a potential for some defensiveness there. So my questions were actually kind of light, but he got so defensive that he actually ended the friendship. He said, "Be careful." He said, "You should watch the way you ask questions to someone you consider a friend." That's what he told me. Um, and I had to let that friendship go because it's not rooted in reality. It's not rooted in truth. He is, like I said, we talked about this. We talked about these like groups that we are either born in or that we choose over time, that we get rewarded from, right? If you work in CNN, they tell themselves that they do good work. They tell themselves that they do journalism. They give themselves awards. They give themselves awards. They have meetings and they talk about the good journalism that they're doing and this and that. And you buy into that. And it feels good. And you get a jacket and you get a salary, a nice salary. So he didn't want to be challenged on that. He didn't want to have to even begin to go down that road. No one challenges him on that. He does the work. They all, they do happy hour. They all talk about how great the day went. Great content creation, guys. And no consideration for how much damage is caused when you have Scott Jennings lying on television, when you have Ben Shapiro on CNN lying to millions of people. No consideration for that. He didn't even want to begin that conversation to get into that path. So that had to end. It had to end. Now you're like, oh, did it have to end, Billy? Did you have to challenge him? Well, I'm not going to meet up for drinks and do some kind of okey doke thing. Like he'd happily talk about Donald Trump for hours without ever addressing the work that he was doing, or the work that, let's put myself in there. I worked there for 5 years, the work that we were doing, how that contributed to Donald Trump's rise into all of this fuck shit that's happening. Me being myself, I live in reality. I'm interested in that deeper condition where we incorporate all things, whether it's comfortable or not. That's what we've been talking about. And so it tested that friendship. I have another friend from high school that I had to get rid of, had to move away from. This person is a Jewish person connected to Zionists. After the genocide had broken out, sort of a year into it, I reached out to him and asked him about Netanyahu's warmongering. And his response was, a lot of people are hurting, Billy. A lot of people are hurting. And I'd rather not talk about it. I'd rather It's emotional for me. I have a lot of people in the IDF, and I'd rather not talk about it. I said, I asked further. I said, yeah, but here's what's happening. Here are these news reports. Here's the violation of the ceasefire. Here, in fact, Netanyahu built Hamas and created the conditions for all this fuck shit. It was very awkward for him. Going down this path would begin to challenge everything that made him comfortable, his identity, the assumptions, the vernacular that made him comfortable. He didn't want that. So yeah, at first he tested and very kind of like warned me to leave things alone, or to let's talk about something else. In fact, he said, let's talk about, did he say platitudes? Is that the word he said? Nah, he asked me to talk about something like, let's talk about something else. What is that? What does that mean? I need people to join me in what is. I need people to join in the depth of our conversation in our reality. How do we stop news organizations like CNN and even worse ones like Fox and these other ones on social media? How do we stop them from abusing our reality and making money while causing us to hate each other? How do we stop that? Oh, by pretending, by avoiding this conversation? How do we stop Netanyahu and the Jewish supremacists and Ben Gvir, who says that international relations doesn't apply to Jewish people? How do we stop that? By all pretending? Most moral army and ally, and Israel doesn't do anything wrong, all this stuff, all the mythology that CNN and Fox presents, I'm supposed to play along with that? I'm supposed to play along with that even with my friends that I've known since high school? No. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to sit in reality. And I'm going to ask that we all join in reality together, because we need to come to a shared reality. We can't be subject to the reality given to us by our corporate Zionist overlords, right? He ended that one. He said, we should take a pause in our friendship. And I said, no, we're not going to take a pause in our friendship. Our friendship is done. If what I've asked you, you won't even allow us to even go down this path, and you want to end our friendship, then our friendship is done. Another friendship, another guy, military guy I went to high school with. We're talking about the Iran war, this most recent act of aggression by the United States and Israel, bombing Iran after the country supposedly had no capabilities. The nuclear enrichment program had been blown up in a previous thing. But this is a country that hadn't started a war in decades. And, this whole mythology around Israel and the military, so this person here, I was like, yo, do you see this crazy aggressive shit that's happening about, in Iran? And he tells me, well, so I started to point out, like, Trump is crazy, and the military, and Pete Hegseth is a goof, doesn't know anything. He needed a story that kept the esteem of the U.S. military. He insisted that there are competent people in the U.S. military and that all these decisions are competent and reasonable. And he came up with a story about drone asymmetry, that the Iranians had advanced drones and it was necessary to bomb them. And all of that was necessary. It has nothing to do with Israel, even though Rubio says flat out that Israel pushed them towards that. He couldn't accept the narrative that challenged the assumptions about American competence and military might and moral upstandingness. And it got awkward. And he said, oh, he thought that I was attacking him. And I wasn't. I was trying to come to truth. Okay? So these are examples from my family to these other friends, and we're about to hit 20 minutes, that demonstrate sort of the process, the path that, and these are just a few examples of what it means when, another version of me wants to hold on to friendships and is willing to stay quiet and we'll just accept these different spaces separately. I can join with each of these people and, all right, we'll just talk about Trump. We won't talk about what we're doing while we're fucking up the world with our media bullshit. We'll just talk about our friendship and reminisce. We won't talk about, these identities that we hold and how and we won't challenge these assumptions that, because I just want to have a drink and we'll just play patty cake and all this stuff. Well, what is true? Are we interested in that? I'm interested in that. And all three of those conversations, the stuff with my family was also awkward. But I'll tell you what, on the other side of that, I'm a trillion times freer. I'm right. I'm true and free. And I'm myself. And I'm proud of it. And I'm happy. And those people all know who I am now. And they adjust. And they can continue. And it seems that they want to continue to do whatever they want. It will be without me. And that's fine. But I have that power to create and shift and align myself with myself. I have the right to do that as well. In some of those cases, there's this guilt of a feeling like I shouldn't be, no. I have a right to do that. We'll continue this tomorrow. How Billy sees it. Peace.